Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy. Birds. What's up, Ted?
What's going on? We got a non-standard broadcast today. You got me as a guest, so hopefully the wonderful fans out there can accept that.
I think they'll be all right with it. I think it's going to be okay. Yeah, so normally Mondays is our Marvel Phase Rip game, but Professor Bill last time went on vacation. Hopefully, he's having a good time and enjoying himself with the family. So, we decided we would just come on here, hang out. If you guys have some GM 911s, we'll take them live. If not, we have a email folder with them, and they've been piling up for quite some time now. Hey everybody joining. Maybe hey, right there, Foxhaven is in the house. Our latest winner chicken dinner. So I lost my train of thought. I derailed myself. Maybe you guys have noticed that we don't do quite as many videos as we used to. We're doing the daily live chat 6 days a week, and we're doing a video where we used to do 2 videos and the live chats we were doing for a while, but we cut back a little bit. So it's left a little less room for us to do. That is correct, Jeremiah. You will not get to try and kick me when I'm down this time. For Ted, I don't know if you know, but the Marvel Phase Rip game we play is kind of fan interactive, and
Yeah, they have the ability to kind of influence the dice rolls and how the
no,
game
no, no, no,
goes.
that's not it at all. They
Oh,
actually play the villains.
oh,
They
wow.
get out. Yeah, yeah. Nerdarchy is far more active than other channels now. We put out a decent amount of content, so we try to keep doing that, and it's our jam, man. That's what we do. So, like I said, I'll reiterate for guys and gals just joining. We are doing GM 911s today. We're going to take some live. We're going to dig into the folder, see what we got going on there. The collaboration between DFC, Taking 20, WebDM is awesome. Yeah, we're having a lot of fun with that game. It's really good. I know Andrew Armstrong gets a lot of hate in the community, but he is a really good role player, and some people just have trouble letting go. But it was fun reading all the WebDM comments on the trailer. The hate. They're like, me and my group cannot support you anymore. We got that one. We got that one too. We will not watch you anymore because you're collaborating with Andrew. I'm like, okay.
So Mitchell Jacobs says this is probably the most active D&D channel I've seen, and it's good content. So that's the thing.
Woohoo! We're totally boned if WebDM starts putting out a lot of content. But on the plus side, I personally know the guy that does all their production stuff, and there's no way he could keep up with the amount of content we put out, because they put a lot of work into every single video. Where we just kind of sit in Ted's basement, have a conversation like we normally would, and let it rock.
So we got some love going on for DFC in the chat here. WTF, Andrew is awesome. So
Yeah. So here's the thing too, like, right, I'll just bring it up a little bit because I have things in my past that I've literally had to deal with the consequences for 20 years later. So I'm like, how long is someone supposed to hang this arbitrage around their neck for? So it's just like, I don't know. What are you going to do? But we said something about GM 911s, right?
we did. So there's a question in here about they leaned it towards stealth, and the people are kind of chiming in, or that the fans are chiming in, that the whole idea of a passive skill set could exist. He used stealth, but it could exist for anything. And he pointed towards observant, that talks about the passive investigation. So, like, didn't we do a video on just that general concept, that if you really wanted to streamline things, you could just do a passive everything?
Yeah, why not? You know, like it just depends on what you want from your game, and you know, like how random you want things to be. To me, that's just a personal choice. Now, if I'm GMing that game and I have players, I would want to run it by them and be like, "Hey, this is what we want to do. Is that okay?" Because here is the thing, right? You do have these rule books, and if the players have the expectation that we're going to follow these rules in this rule book, then you know that could be a problem. That could be a disconnect. But as long as as long as everyone's on the same page and you guys communicate, you know that can absolutely work. Everett, I am not sure what your question was. Hey, you know what, guys? Too, when you have questions from now on, like I actually learned this from being on DFC the other day, is before the actual question, just like put question in quotes or something, and then start your question right at the beginning, because it makes it easier for us to follow them that way. And here at Nerdarchy, we're always willing to steal and innovate wherever we can. Yeah, and Everett, so I don't know if you asked your question in this particular chat, or you're talking about an email or a message, or who knows, because we get a lot of stuff from a lot of different directions. So
when a mystic attacks a creature that is resistant to magic, and the mystic's ability affected?
I feel like if you look at the monster manual, it kind of says to treat psionics as magic. Now, I have mixed feelings about this. Like mechanically, that makes sense, because if you don't do that, it actually makes psionics way too powerful. But I also like the idea that psionics is different than magic. And so that, again, that leads back to the first problem. And the other thing is there isn't enough psionic creatures or psionics in the core books, or in the core books at all, to kind of balance that out.
So you kind of go ahead, finish.
You literally would need a second monster manual with all psionic creatures in it to kind of like balance it out.
And that's kind of the point I was getting towards. Like you have to kind of figure out what you're going to do with your table, and other editions have really said, all right, well, here's the way to do it. You either have magic and you have psionics, and magic resistance and psionic resistance are different things. I know in one edition there was literally a section of, hey, these creatures have magic resistance and they also have equal psionic resistance. These creatures just have psionic resistance. These creatures just have magic resistance. And you have to kind of bounce back and forth. So the easiest thing is to talk to your players or your DM and figure out how it's being handled at your table. And until we have more psionics and the official psionic rules, probably in an official psionic book, it's best to just go with, psionic is affected by magic resistance and easy peasy.
Yeah, in third edition, they had like a specific rule for it that you could implement, but would not work in fifth edition at all. And it was like the magic resistance -10, and you could go the same way for psionics resistance -10. But obviously in 5e, it's just advantage on your saving throws is basically magic resistance, or you have actual resistance where you take half damage, or you have immunity. So that actually doesn't work. And Vex Bad Spider, my friend, has asked a question. How should I handle non-combat solutions to confrontations? So, like, that's kind of a loaded question, because it really, like, that could be anything, right? As a GM, you just got to go, oh, well, is this solution that my players are offering, does it make sense, or is it more interesting than the fight? Is kind of like how I weigh things out. Where is it going to go? Is it going to be fun? Because here's the thing too, right? Say you got a battle that's about to happen, but your players do one of these moves, right? They interject this idea that they're going to do something that's going to stop the combat, and they're going to overcome this problem in a non-violent way. So as a DM, there's completely nothing wrong with you going along with it for a bit and then going, you know what, it actually doesn't make sense, or it isn't working. And then you can go back to the combat, because you can always go back to the combat, right? Someone can always start trying to hit somebody else, even if you decide to wait and go, oh, I want to see how this plays out. Right. But if your players are doing things that are super clever and super cool, I don't mean making diplomacy checks and intimidation checks and rolling a bunch of dice, but that can be a part of it. But I would like to see that they're being very interactive and they're role playing and they're being creative and they're really trying to, think out of the box. That stuff I think should really be rewarded.
I
Thoughts,
agree.
Ted?
Oh, I agree. I actually, I am very strongly for players finding ways around combat. While there's definitely a part of me that harkens back to the days when I loved combat. Now I'm far more involved in, or far more interested in the role playing aspect of the game, and I would have no problems if we didn't roll dice the entire session. I know there's some people that like they absolutely balk, like, what do you mean I never touched a die this session? But you can have a fantastic game and never have to swing a sword or roll a die. So.
Right. I mean, it's like you basically just said it, right? You're playing a game. As long as you guys are having fun, how that fun happens doesn't really matter. It just matters what your table enjoys, right?
Right. So we have a. Oh, you got another thought?
Oh no, I was just going to go
Okay.
to like the next question.
All right. Well, we got a question that's further back that got skipped. Shun Helton wants to know, how do you deal with a DM that suddenly bails?
Hey, that's right where I was going.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
So I look at this one and I'm like, well, there's only a couple things that I see as possible alternatives. If the DM is
Wait a minute. Are you going to say white panel van?
no,
All right, good. You didn't take mine.
so I was gonna say, like, all right, if no one is willing to step up and go from player to a DM in that campaign, I see the only real option is to someone else steps into the DM's chair and you guys all start over.
Well,
You know,
even regardless, right? If someone doesn't DM your game, your game, possibly your group is over, right? So one of you guys you either have to, someone's got a man or woman up and sit behind the screen and run the game so people can play. Maybe you guys even rotate, take turns, whatever. Or you're gonna have to you're gonna have to go out and find someone to GM the game. They're your really only options, or you're gonna have to go find another game to join, and that group, is going to be whatever it's going to be. Unfortunately, and there's tons of different reasons why a GM might bow. What'd you guys do to your GM?
So I mean, you guys can follow us, as we do, and you could technically do this with the same group of players, although we don't. You could just like, all right, we're gonna rotate DMs, and you run a story and I run a story. They have nothing to do with each other, or only loosely, have to do with each other, and you have the ability to. Well, you only have to run once a month, and it makes it a lot easier because I know back in the day when our group was together, we met every single week. It was one DM. Burnout just happened so quickly that it's like, all right, I need a break from running because there's so much that would go into, well, I need to plan, I need to be ready for the session. I've talked about in numerous videos, it's like, oh, well, I come to the table with a sentence or a concept or a little bit written down, but literally, like, I've got brain space that I can sit there and say, all right, well, I'm going to ponder what I want to do next or where I'd like to take the game next as the month goes by. So I've got time that I'm not committed to, let's sit down and write material. I've just got this mulling around in the background, and eventually I link onto an idea and I say, okay, I've got this, and I don't have to do much more with it. Whereas, like, if I'm doing this every single week, that forces me to, oh, well, I need to sit down and prep and actually take the time every week. You don't have that as much mulling time. You don't have the same lack of pressure. You're under the gun every single week to perform, to be prepared, and it's not always easy.
I think that's a fallacy. But as someone who runs multiple games every week, I'm like, Although, I may have to take 15 minutes before the game and be like, what direction are we going in today? And what can I throw out there for them to totally derail?
Well, I mean, some of the games that you run online, you've got veteran players that are, that have spoon fed you things that they're interested in doing. And when you got that shortened session time, like there's times that like the Scarlet Sisterhood game, very little actually progresses in the overarching story. And same thing happens with the Open Legend, where like we get these little snippets as opposed to we're going to run for 4 or 6 hours at a live game or at a recorded game as opposed to a live game, where it's far more far. I want to say intense enough is the wrong word, but like some of those players, they need to be, they're not ready to just I'm going to come up with ideas. So like you need to have more stuff prepared for those groups.
Yeah, I mean, you got to have some ideas, absolutely, and really active players make it a lot easier. That is true. So Spider 6 question: how many characters are too many for one player to have in one game? Two. Two is too many. I absolutely hate multiple player characters. Like, if you want to play multiple characters, you know what you should be doing? DMing. That's the guy or gal that runs a bunch of characters, right? Like, now, look, whatever you do in your game is your business, and if it's fun for you, that's fine. Whatever, I don't care. But if you're coming here and going, "Hey, what do you think?" and that's exactly what I think. It's probably been like 15 years before I have actually seen the multiple players in a game. But plus, too, like you're also talking about a role playing game, right? You should be role playing. So I definitely see a problem where you're gonna end up with players, that aren't able to role play two different characters at once. Anyway, that would be weird. And what happens if they talk to each other? That becomes weird. Is a GM when you have NPCs communicating to each other and you have to role play that? That's weird. We kind of tend to hand wave that in our games just because it's weird, right? to role play with yourself. Now I know that there's some really good like voice actors and people that do that, but for me personally, it's like odd.
So I will say as one caveat in my game, Scott's character had several NPCs that were essentially hirelings, so he controlled them, but I was their voice. So I still felt that was a little clunky when combat were to happen because he's taking essentially 3 turns when that were to happen, but each character was significantly less powerful than the rest of the group, and they were a resource drain from both a monetary standpoint because they were NPCs taking coin from him, as well as a drain on the healers in the party because those characters would take damage, and rather than it going to one of the players who were injured, those characters had to happen. And I think at one point in time, one or both of them wound up having to be resurrected, so that was a financial drain on the party as well. So that's the one caveat. I try to limit that type of situation, but it is a possibility for some DMs to have hirelings.
So I'm just looking. There's a bunch of questions here.
Okay.
And it jumped on me because I was just like trying to go in order. All right, I think I'm back to where I was. And there's a bunch of like really good questions. All right, so let's see what you think about this one, Ted.
Right.
Zach, Tyler. Question: tips on balancing custom magic items. My DM gave me a sick weapon arm, but it's sentient and hates me. I have to charisma save to keep control of my body once per session. Well, I guess it depends. There's a couple things. One, like how good is it? And two, what's it going to do if it gains control? Like, is it going to be like a case like Evil Dead where it tries to kill you? Why does it hate you? Can you make it not hate you in any way? And for guys and gals just joining, if you have a question, just put question before it. So this way we know what to go to. So we know if you're talking to each other or talking to us. And
All
then,
right, so go ahead.
I was just going to say the tips on balancing custom magic items. So really, basically balancing magic items isn't hard. What's hard for the DM, I feel, and for me, because I've been there and done that, is like you've got this awesome menu, right, of all these cool things, and you just want them all. And it's fun, but the trick is looking at the magic items that are kind of appropriate for your character's level, and making sure you line up with that. And when you're first creating magic items as the GM, you should you should err on the side of caution and make things a little bit weaker, and until you get more competent in building new magic items and you feel more comfortable with it, and then you can always up it.
So I love making magic items, and it's one of those things that I think adds a great joy to the game, because not only do you have the ability to create something that's not in the book, and thus a player gets something they've never seen before, but you can even go a step further and have something tailored towards a character that's in your group, that's in the party. So it's like, oh well, like for instance, in my game, Dave was really torn. Like, I want this class ability because I'm doing multi-class, but I don't know whether I want to take it to that next level. I'm like, oh well, there's an easy solution to this, and I wound up incorporating that small thing into a magic item for the character. Now, I put it out there as treasure to be had, and lo and behold, his character wound up with it because nobody else really wanted it. It could be a problem if you create something that two people both want, and then you kind of create this issue. So you do have to be careful about that. The other side of your question is that the concept of cursed magic items. Now, there's a cursed magic item in my game, but that's a more of a story element, and it's become so because the players, nobody wants to go near it, nobody wants to touch it, because it's already had issues. And there's been, oh well, you fail to save, you lose control of your character for a time, and some interesting things have happened. There's been several murders that wound up transpiring, and that's impacted characters' decisions on the overall game. If somebody wanted to stay with it, if somebody wanted to do something, they've got that choice to make. They could pick up that amazing spear and deal with the consequences. So that is the choice that every DM has to make. Typically, I don't go down cursed magic items because they detract from the player's choice. So it's like, oh well, you've decided to attune to this, you're screwed now. You're going to have to deal with this consequence. I think that takes away from the fun, unless that player's really into it. And I've known players that are.
I would like add one caveat, right?
Yeah.
That's a play style, right? That's a choice. Your players will hopefully really old school OSR, grognardish kind of games are like that. They're more deadly. You're just as likely to get a cursed item as a good item, and it's a play style choice. So just I would just want to throw that out there. But
yeah, I agree.
That's not the game we've been playing.
Right.
So Cold Fire, were you done?
Yeah.
All right. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to put that one thought out there. Cold Fire question. Matthew Colville recently described loading the deck against the players, making it beyond deadly encounter, and not knowing how the players might survive. How do you feel about this DMing? All right. So there's a couple components to this, right? I don't actually really believe in making the encounters that way per se. But if I was using random encounters, I have no problem with that coming across it, because that's kind of what happens, right? Now the other thing is too, like there's this thing that happened in third edition and has kind of gone forward, right? And that's the appropriate challenge rating for, for the party. And that used to not be a thing. Like you could, in earlier editions of the game, you might have a written module where you kick in the door to a room and there's 6 kobolds, and the next room there's a troll. So so it's kind of a play style choice. I guess I would kind of want to like foreshadow that if that's a possibility, so that the players can try and prepare or whatever. I would like to give them the opportunities to run away or parlay if that's the case. But you just going, I'm just going to pile up like the worst encounter I can, where I just know my players are going to get smoked. I don't know if that's something I would do. I like challenging my players, and I have no problem with creating a really difficult encounter. But the idea that you're going to put one that they couldn't possibly win against, as long as they're like, if you wanted to do that as a way to drive them somewhere else, or to instill into them like, oh, this is going to be a real problem and they're not really meant to overcome this encounter right now, then that's not a big deal. But if you're going, oh, you like, this is it, this is the adventure, if you want to complete it and finish it, you got to bust through this obstacle, even though you're third level and I put a terrace there. To me, it doesn't really make sense. In even from a game standpoint, even from the role-playing standpoint, like you're just going to throw yourself and splatter against the wall pretty much. Like even like in the recent Saber Dice game, I'm playing Jogo the Giant, and someone asked me how I was going to punch a ghost, and Jogo's response was, Jogo's going to run away. Like, ghosts are scary. You can't punch a ghost. So I kind of RP'd that aspect. So I don't know. It's a difficult question. I haven't watched that video either to actually know, fully what it's about. So Matt's videos are usually fairly long, and I suspect the two or three sentences isn't going to justify everything he talked about. He's also a brilliant GM. So, Ted?
So I would look at that as, again, what is the purpose of doing that? Now, if you're going to put an encounter in there that they can't beat because of a story element, players have to get kidnapped, the players have to be defeated and driven off, and you have a reason for doing it, great. If your reason is I want to kick my players' ass so that they know it can be done, that's not the way I run. And defeating players, just be like, well, I wanted to get a total party kill, TPK at some point in time in my life, so I'm just going to make it happen. Like that's an even worse reason. I have a large group that I run for, and I struggle with what is the correct amount of monster or bad guys for them to actually face and have it be a credible threat to what they can actually handle. And as I'm planning out all of the different things that I have to eventually lay into the storyline, I'm like, well, how am I going to handle this? What is it going to take to do that? I like doing solo monsters, and yet I think as a 14th level party, I think these guys could do considerable damage, if not already take out the Tarrasque. So I'm like, I don't know what I want to do for solo encounters, and I don't want to be like, well, it's got 3,000 hit points, because that's just boring. So I have to figure out how I'm going to do those kind of things to make the encounters challenging and interesting for those solo type situations. But I'm never going to throw out stuff that, well, I'm just going to beat them up for the sake of beating them up. So I agree with Dave that if you're going to do it as a random encounter and have proper foreshadowing that, oh, you're low level and a dragon flies overhead, you guys hide. You don't go to try and fight the dragon. That should be something that all parties should be aware of. There should be times where you can't win this fight, don't enter into it, or some things have to be negotiated with because it's a role-playing encounter. If you go to fight it, you're going to lose. But when you set those things up, it could be done in a situation where the party's not going to get killed. The adversary is going to be like, all right, enough, guys. You can't do it. And you have the descriptions be obvious that it's like, all right, well, they're casually batting aside your attack, almost as if your actual hit was not really a detriment to them at all. And when you have those descriptions, hopefully your players are intelligent enough to realize, oh, I'm actually not damaging them enough for it to be enough of an impact. I guess this is not a combat.
Yeah, it just comes down to like, why are you doing that? Like, what is the purpose?
Right.
And yeah, and also like knowing your players, right? You got to know your players. I literally put in. You guys are probably like between 6th and 8th level, if not lower. And I literally put an Empyrion in the game that was basically been Borgified. And my players wanted to fight it. They're like, we're going to fight this thing. Like they're going out of their way to show, like it was leaving, and they're going out of their way to try and figure out how to fight it. Like they just had witnessed like the most powerful feat of magic they've ever seen after the top of a mountain was literally blown off. And they're like, yeah, we need to figure out how to get up there and fight that guy. So
yeah,
know your players. Real quick, guys, there is no Marvel RPG this week. I believe we're going to resume next week. I'll have to double check on that. Professor Bill is on vacation with his family, and I don't know. I think he mentioned it during the last game. Maybe not. Maybe he did it afterwards after we were offline. But it will be returning. It's just a matter of time. So, John the Lion, question: how can you mix railroad and sandbox style if possible? Actually, it's actually really easy, right? You create a linear adventure, and then you let your players do whatever they're going to do. So, even if you've created this adventure and they ignore it, you do what they're going to do, and maybe you can use it later. Maybe you can chop up pieces and use it for that session. But it's really just it's just the GM saying yes when the players say I want to do X, right? You need them to go to the mountains because that's the adventure you wrote, because you have plans for the mountains and that stuff is there. But they're like, no, we're going to go to the forest because we want to talk to the fairy queen. Well, you know what? You got, hopefully you can take 5 or 10 minutes and think about what the fairy queen is going to say to them, or you can have them go there and not find the fairy queen or something else happens. But like that, literally, every sandbox and every game that's a sandbox or a railroad game has the ability to be each, right? And railroad, there's 2 different ways of looking at railroad. One is it's just a linear adventure, meaning you, the GM, has written out a series of encounters and situations that the players are going to find themselves in theory. And that's fine, right? It's not a railroad until you make them do it. Right. And there's different things, right? Because sometimes people will say something's like a railroad just because the players have kind of lost control of what they can do. But real life is kind of like that too, right? Like I'm working on a construction site and a tractor trailer comes into it, right? I have no agency in what that tractor trailer does. All I can do is really just try and get out of the way and not get plowed over. Yeah, and your game can be the same way. Like I ran Maze of Mandoon several times, and the players can do whatever they want up until they're in the maze, right? And then they're kind of at the mercy of the maze. Even in the maze, they can kind of do what they want, but once they're there, they're there. Like that's the problem to overcome. That's not really railroading. Something happened that was beyond their control.
So we actually had done a video. Are you getting an echo?
I am not.
Okay. We did a video on this topic, before, combining combining the two and seeing how things wind up going. And there's actually a comment in there saying, hey, you can go search Nerdarchy Railroad and be able to find, you know, our video on that particular topic. So again, our awesome fans pointing people in the right direction. So we have another question from I'm Owning You. What do you think about players fighting dirt, like, for example, throwing glass powder or sand in the eyes of an enemy or something of that nature? To me, like, that just seems like I'm doing the help action. So, like, I would give the advantage to the next attack on that person.
Yeah, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. How you abdicate it is not even all that important, as long as you're consistent on how you do it. Like, basically, like Ted said, oh, well, the next person that takes an action for them, you know, they have advantage. Or you might be like, oh, okay, well, you could literally go, okay, well, that's kind of a low-tech thing, DC 10 dex save, right? And maybe it's a DC 10 dex save until, you know, and they're at disadvantage, they're blinded until they have the blinded condition until they can kind of shake it off.
Right.
And you just make it a kind of a low DC where, okay, it has the ability to do something and it can even be an ongoing effect, but at the same time, it's also, they have like a 50% or better chance of overcoming it. So I'm all about it. Even in the Saber Dice game we're currently playing, I believe Robin Steele, Pruitt's character, keeps like bags of sand and stuff like that just for that. And, you know, the DM just came up with a ruling on, well, this is how that works. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. If it adds flavor and fun to your game, do it.
All right. So Ben Canveri, I'm gonna streamline your question here because some people might be offended by your word choice. He's playing a neutral good pirate, but he wants to know, like, is Cure Light Wounds appropriate for him since he uses mana?
Since he uses mana,
I don't know what mana actually
is to him.
Is to you in your game. When you're a spellcaster and you have access to magic, you know, it's up to you what you feel is a worthwhile spell. And, you know, bards, sorcerers, you know, you're limited on your spell choices. So if you feel that it is useful, I would keep it. I don't know whether it's going to you know, have your other pirates shun you if you're using this type of thing. It might save someone's life someday, including yours. I lean towards clerics. I like them a lot, so for me, having access to cure wounds is always a good thing. But,
yeah. So Ben, it's a very personal choice between you and your bard. You guys have to decide what kind of bard you are. It doesn't matter. Like the mechanic mana, that could mean anything, you know, really. And, you know, replace it with magic, replace it with whatever. But at the end of the day, you know, is it something your character would do, you envision him doing, or does mana mean something different in your world? And if you're saying that somehow, you know, the fact that you're using mana instead of magic or whatever you're doing, because traditionally, like in video games and even card games, mana really just represents how much magic you have at your disposal, right? Like, that's my understanding, unless you're talking about mana from heaven. But so really, I don't think that's really relevant. It's just a matter of, like, well, how do you want to play that character?
You know, the only thing I could possibly think is, like, perhaps the type of mana you're using, like, has an outward appearance on your aura, or, you know, somewhere that it's a way for people to see what it is that you have access to or what you're using. So if you're worried that those spell choices have been flavored in a way that's going to affect you physically on some kind of either visible or magically visible spectrum, well, if you don't want to be flavored that way, then don't. But I mean, if there's no way for people to know, then it's just a choice.
So I'm just looking, like, because I was looking at where we were at in the comments and how many there are.
Oh, I know.
You guys are awesome today, man. You guys are talking your asses off, and you're actually talking to us as opposed to each other. So that's kind of cool too.
So we have a quick thing from Vex Bad Spider. If you want to find, a place to talk on Facebook for fan games and just interaction with each other, we do have our secret group, the Company of the Nag. So you can apply to join that, and there are games that occasionally happen. I know there's regularly people who are like, "Hey, I'm looking for a game. Anybody have one that's going on?" So.
Right, and if you're also looking for other places as well, there's a one-shot tabletop RPG one-shot group, Absolute Tabletop. All those groups have a lot of games going. And again, also you can join Company of the Nag. Now, if you're talking about specifically gaming with Nerdarchy, we do a monthly drawing. Basically, you sign up for the newsletter that tells you how to sign up for a list where the only thing we really use that for is selecting fans for the games, as well as our patrons. So if you do either one of those, you're in the drawing. If you do both of those, you're in the drawing. And on Patreon, there's no level for that. It's just be a patron and you're in the drawing.
$1 a month that gets you an entry into the fan game as well as an entry into our monthly giveaway.
And then the other thing is what we tend to do is there's been like 3 ways of us finding players if we can't fill the table. So what we'll do is we will either go into Patreon and send a message over there, or we'll put something up in the Facebook group. And I've even done, hey, I'm doing this live stream today. If tonight I'm going to be checking the email. If you guys email me, you're available for the game tomorrow, you're in. So we do different things as far as when we're short for players. And surprisingly, almost without fail, when we do a list of 10, we do not fill, the 4 or 5 people. So there's definitely other ways for people to show up. So if you happen to be a person that pays attention to the other places where Nerdarchy is, your chances in being in more games with us is greatly increased. So also, we are, more than halfway through, so we might as well do the roll call. You guys can kick that off. You got any questions over there, Ted? You want to go into that? We're waiting for roll call.
Yeah, I actually was changing screens for a moment, so I got to find the next one.
Oh, okay. What's this one?
All right, so I run a game with only 2 players, but even the super easy encounters I make for them are somehow hard for them. They don't think that much when they fight, and they just use one weapon or spell.
All right, who is that by?
That is by Stefan Petkov.
Okay. So what you're saying is, they don't. Okay, so they're not really changing it up when combat happens. They're kind of like, they're on autopilot. They do the same things over and over again. So the best thing you can do in those situations is create situations where they can't do that, right? You don't want to do it all the time because that'd be kind of a dickish move. But every once in a while, if you do it, then they have to think differently. And by making them think differently, hopefully next time they're in just their normal situation, they'll go, oh, well, I tried this other thing before, and that worked really well, or it had a good effect, so maybe I'll try something different this time. Also, when your players try different things, try to be encouraging and not punitive. So by that, one of the things I mean is, like, if they try something off the wall, maybe you require extra checks or whatever, but what you could do is give them benefits for rolling well. So there's sometimes when a player will say, hey, I want to try this, and I'm sure you can try that. I try not to put it in a way that would deter them from it. I might say, oh, that might be a little difficult, but you can absolutely try it. And I'll be like, roll a die. I might not even have a DC in my head, to be honest with you. But if they roll really, really well, then I think something cool should happen. And then I'm going to give them a benefit for it, whether it's advantage, extra damage, or something different. I would probably even do something a little bit better than advantage, just because they added something interesting to the game.
So you want me to read off the roll call?
Oh, sure.
All right. So let's, of course, just when I'm getting ready to start, it jumps.
It jumps, yeah.
All right. So we got Chris in Houston, Tesmic in Australia, Brian from West Georgia. We got Lincoln in Sweden, Mitchell in Michigan, Scratch Paper Games in Beaver Dam, Wisconsin, Poison in Kuwait, Truemate in Wales, UK, Fraginator in Seattle, Washington, Jinker GM in Luskin, Patrick, another from Sweden.
Say hi to Morik for me.
Yeah, AJ in Washington, Victor Spatorcio in Niagara Falls, New York, Jonathan in Gilbert, Arizona, Josh Potter in Mozambique, awesome. Mike Thompson in Southern on the Sea, Essex, England. Steve in Arizona. Zerif Gaming in New Mexico. He's going mad that he's in New Mexico. Raven in Australia. John in Nebraska. Fenrir in Jacksonville, Florida. Aonar in Susquehanna, New Jersey. Very cool. Nordic Dragon 89 in Sweden. That's 3 for Sweden. Cool. Spider 6 in Fayetteville. And, oh, no, it jumps again. I apologize. We got Ben in Canada. Joao in Portugal. Clinton in Virginia. Mosby in Maryland, D.C. area. Scott in Wisconsin. Wilder Smith in Wee York. Is that UK or is that something supposed to be New York? I don't know. A Nickname is in Santa Cruz, California. Everett Breakfall in Panama City, Florida. Oh, Wilder Smith is in New York. There you go. I'm Owning You in Louisiana. Logan Linder in Oregon. Mark Daniel in New Jersey. April Compton in Texas. Zach in Hawaii.
Rob's Cleaning Service in Oregon.
What?
Did you say Mr. Rob's Cleaning Service in Oregon?
Did I miss that one?
Yeah, but I just think it's funny.
Yeah. We got Lep in Arizona, Brian F in NYC, and Cold Fire in Chicago. Andrew Holloway in DC just came in.
Yeah.
Spat Orico. Sorry, Victor.
Come on, guys. You know we can't talk. We can't say.
I know I'm horrible at pronouncing things correctly. So
it's funny. T Mosey, I'll actually be in your hood this weekend, but I'm doing all family stuff. So I will not be sneaking away for any Nerdarchy stuff. Unfortunately, pains my heart a little bit to have to admit that. But I promised the wife and kids a weekend. We're actually going to be doing Maryland and Washington D.C. this weekend.
So we got oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say that's why Nate will be soloing the quest this weekend again.
Yes, I will be on a canoe or in a canoe or
under a canoe.
Hopefully not under.
In a dragon turtle's belly.
Oh no! I don't think dragon turtles are going to fit in the river that we're going down. We got a question from Clinton Hess. How do you handle a player who only plays one style? In this case, tanky characters. My player is just new and hasn't really branched out because of how many questions he has. I just let him go with it. If he makes the same character over and over again, I play a fighter, swing my sword, wield my shield, like show him how cool other things can be. But if his first 3 characters wind up being incredibly similar, let him run with it. If it's oh, this is the 17th dude, I don't know if you saw the of Dice and Men, like that dude, like every single one of his characters he plays a rogue
from age 8 until going to college. So.
That I think is a problem. I used to love fighters. I've branched out, but I mean, even then, I would still oh well, I'm gonna go in this direction or go in that direction, and I've played just about everything there is.
So, I would challenge that a little bit, Ted. So, why is it a problem?
You're asking me why it's a problem?
Yes.
I don't think it's necessarily a problem. It's a disappointment for that player to not be able to see the breadth that this game has to offer.
But if the player's not disappointed, is it really? Like, it's just one of those things. Like, okay, well, I get, like, you're like, oh, but there's so many more cool things you could do. But like, this is what I like. I eat vanilla ice cream. I only eat vanilla ice cream. I won't eat any other kind of ice cream because I like vanilla ice cream. Like, that doesn't affect me, right? So, like, if that's what you like,
it could technically, depending upon what the not group as an adventuring group, but the group of players at the table, if they're the kind of group that wants to have all the roles filled, and this guy is constantly being a tank,
then it's covered.
But it's covered. But what if somebody else wants to be a tank? Then it's affecting the group.
Then you have two tanks. Because I hate that because
I know you hate it, but not every group plays that way, Dave.
Well, it doesn't matter.
It does if that particular group is, well, we have 4 players. Somebody has to be the cleric. Somebody has to be the mage. Somebody has to be the tank. Somebody has to be the sneak.
Right, but here's my problem with that. I hate people telling other people what to do. Right, if you feel like you have to fill that role, then you be one of the other roles, because you're telling this player he can't play what he wants to play because you want to play, and someone else has to be the cleric. It's kind of like, it's a douchey move. I hate when other people infringe upon other people.
I understand. You asked how it's a problem, and that's a possible option. You and I don't play that style. We run games for whatever people feel like rolling. I can play anything, and I can come up with, oh, well, I'll enjoy playing this character. I don't always feel like all the roles need to be fulfilled, but if something might be missing and I have an interest in it, I can do it. So I see both sides, and if that group happens to play that style, that's how it could possibly be a problem.
So
it does butt heads with
group's a problem.
Well,
but yeah, but back to the original question is, like, eventually if that player wants to move out of his comfort zone, he will. If not, why make him uncomfortable? It doesn't really matter as long as everyone else at the table is playing what they want to play and everyone's having fun. Who cares?
So Zareth Gaming wants to know, does the undying patron have to be undead? What constitutes an undying patron?
I don't even remember what exactly how it reads, what that patron is, to be honest with you. I have not played that one. Did you actually play that one?
I don't think I did that one.
I thought I thought you switched to that one. Maybe not in the in my Spelljammer game. Or did you switch away from being pack of
no, I think I don't know. Maybe it was that game was. That's a problem with that game. We play once a year, so it's difficult to remember all of the.
Well, this is what it says. Your patron is not a specific entity, but the energy that radiates from positive plane. Your pact allows you to experience the barest touch of raw stuff of life, the powers of the multiverse, anything more, and you would be instantly incinerated by its energy. Contact with the positive plane causes subtle changes to your behavior and beliefs. You are driven to bring light to dark places, annihilate undead creatures, to protect all living things. At the same time, you crave light and find total darkness to be suffocating experience akin to drowning.
So then, yeah, I do think that's the one that I switched to, and that to me seems nothing to do with it being undead. It's the one that hates undead. So, like, to me, that seems more like a celestial, either in the heavens or, in the actual, planetary kind of alignment.
Right, and I don't know if that one got the revision treatment or not. That was just like the first thing that came up when I actually searched
Undying Light
for it. Yeah, we interwebsed it.
So, like, some are saying, "Oh, this is the Lich patron," but I don't think a Lich is going to do Undying Light.
No, that doesn't sound right. Unless it is a lich that wants to see all undead obliterated. That, you know, itself included eventually. Maybe he's last on the list. And also, like Undying, there was I think it was the Undying in Ebron. They were the elves, the ancestrals, that would basically become like good liches kind of deal.
The Balnorns.
Fraginator, what's up, buddy? Answer is, if I remember correctly, they changed the Undying patron to the Celestial patron for Xanathar's guide. You got something we don't got? No, I think it was probably one of the ones that got revised again. They might have changed the lore up a little bit.
Right.
I don't know how these guys keep all this stuff straight all the time. It's so much information.
So, Mr. Voltos, because I'm not going to attempt to pronounce that first name again. Me and my friend only play 2-hour sessions a week, and some weeks we can't even play. I feel like the leveling is super slow. Any tips? I think this has nothing to do with. I really don't think there's anything that we can do. This is entirely how your DM decides to do stuff. If you're playing 2 hours and you can't cram in enough role playing and combat into that, well, can you step up how much time you're playing, or can you do more to actually get can you get more assurances that you're going to game every week? And Wraithier Foxhaven responds milestone leveling, which is totally a thing. And that's kind of what Dave and I do. We don't calculate XP anymore. It's just when we feel like it's time to level, we say gain a level.
So, Fergal Kuden, you pretty much covered that. That's basically what we do. But Fergal Kuden at Nerdarchy question: how do you approach having a Dragon Rider solo campaign? You may or may not heard of this thing called Game of Thrones, and Daenerys kind of does that a little bit. Really, so anytime you have a campaign, it's not normal for D&D, right? My opinion is the best way to approach that is you approach it from the story, right? What is the story you're trying to tell? How would that story unfold if it was a novel with one main character? Granted, D&D is not a novel, but it gives you a starting place, right? So that is how I would approach it. And you would take it from there. What are the stories that you're going to tell? Because that's going to kind of dictate what kind of adventures you're going to create for that player, for that character. And, obviously, right, chances are you have a Dragon Rider and they're probably not going to go spelunking. Like you can probably rule that right out. So there's going to be things like that are going to pop up right away. But what is that? What is the Dragon Rider trying to do? What is their objective? What is the problem they have to go up against? Is there an antagonist that they're going to have to eventually face? What are they doing? So, basically, if you can start answering those questions, then it'll kind of fill it in, right? Like you're not going to go, oh, well, there's this mine full of goblins, because that wouldn't make sense, because your Dragon Rider isn't going into mines. So you can kind of like eliminate that stuff. You got anything you want to add to that one, Ted?
No, I mean that pretty much covers it. I mean, anytime you're going to do solo or 2-player sessions, like you really have to streamline your material for the type of character that you have. Okay, well, you've got a fighter dude. Okay, well, he needs to have weaker enemies to fight, possibly in masses. Every once in a while, he's going to get into a cool duel, and hopefully his dice don't suck or he's going to lose. If you're going with a two-party or two-person party, it's got to be really careful, because one crit on your side could turn it into a 1v, which becomes really deadly really quickly. So it's dangerous.
Or an opportunity for a new game.
And anytime you've got those kind of games, it's going to be it should be a lot of heavy role playing and light encounters, as you said, it's you got to look at what novels are, and that's tend to be what novels do. Novels don't show you, fight to fight to fight to fight. It's a lot of interaction, and every so often there's a fight. So again, if you're doing that one person thing, you can literally deliver exactly what the player wants, because there's no one else that can be disappointed. You literally can give them everything that they want out of a game and have it be spectacular.
Oh yeah, Poison. No spoilers. I wasn't planning on it, but by the way, that Game of Thrones was freaking awesome last night. That's all I will say.
So we're getting close to end here. I don't know how many more of these we want to do, Dave, but a nickname wants to know, how do you help players navigate the ethical decisions that they feel are wrong later that they made that decision? So basically, all right, I do something early on, now I've regretted it. How do you handle that?
Well, you know what? I've kind of done it in your game, right? It's just role playing. It's like, how would you feel about that?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I look at it as, okay, if you've gotten to the point where you've regretted an earlier decision, it's going to impact the rest of your role playing to some degree. So you can either say, oh, well, how can I rectify that, that person that you wound up murdering in my game? Even though you weren't at the helm at the time, it was the dagger. You could have said, all right, well, can I pay to have that person resurrected because you've gained in power? You've got access to a cleric who literally can do that. So that's a choice. If it's not within the confines of the party, you could seek out another priest, another cleric of significant enough power to be able to rectify that situation. And that's typically the biggest thing that most people are going to have to deal with. Okay, well, what if you set about massive world-changing events? All right, well, we didn't kill that bad guy who's now ascended to power and controls half the realm. All right, well, that's just the next quest. Let's go and defeat that guy. So there's tons of things where you can literally, if you've messed up, you can go on a quest to try and fix it, and that dictates to the DM, hey, my character's really invested in the story that's unfolded, and now he's engrossed in the world because he wants to change it based off of something negative that happened previously. To me, that's just a win.
Right, and you could do that, or you don't actually have to do anything, right? It's like your character could just literally be remorseful about it, and then you kind of move on from there.
Yes.
Or like you said, they might have to go out and seek redemption, or whatever. What it's gonna be, and it's gonna be different, right? It's gonna be different for every character,
every situation. Yep.
And just like it for people. So the best thing, like when you're doing any kind of role playing, when you're talking about RPGs, is you're trying to get inside the headspace of someone that isn't you, that you've created, right? So you have to think, how would they react to this? Would they handle it the way you would, or would they handle it some other way? And then you kind of just go from there.
All right, so I want to field this one, or at least ask you your opinion. Mitchell Jacob wants to know, would you play a campaign based around Game of Thrones?
Would I play? You know what? Like, there is the game, right? There's a game put out by Green Ronin Publishing, I believe, The Song of Fire and Ice. So you could literally play that game, right? And you're in that campaign world. D&D would be a piss poor rendition of Game of Thrones. You would have to use all the really gritty rules, the optional rules, to make it more realistic. There's far less magic and things like that, so that changes the game. Like, you might even be better off looking at like Middle Earth, the 5e rules, and kind of incorporating that into it and playing it. But as D&D, you would have to make a lot of changes to play that game and to really capture the feel of that world.
Now, I wouldn't have a problem playing in the setting. I'm not the kind of person that wants to, go character death after character death. So, like, I would be a little, pulled back about playing that kind of storyline. So,
yeah, like you could do it without character death, without having a bunch of character deaths, but you'd be playing a different type of game.
That's what I'm saying.
It wouldn't be D&D. So someone said, "Come on, 100 viewers. We've dipped above a couple times on the 100 viewers today." It's funny, like we'll bring on like these really cool guests and people that are kind of like maybe have a little bit of like celebrity to them, and then like we'll get like 30 people. It's just us two idiots here rapping, and you guys come out of the woodwork. Maybe we should stop bringing on guests. I don't know. But I like having guests on, and I like having people on here with us. But anyways, guys, we are past the time. Thanks for hanging out with me today, Ted. I know Mondays are busy for you, and you have like actual work to do and stuff.
And it sucks, but you gotta do the Nerdarchy stuff.
And I want to thank everybody who has come out to hang out with us today. We did dip over 100 people from time to time. We're still in the 90s, which is friggin' awesome. Monday afternoon, people from all over the world. Guys, we really do love you guys, and you make this all worthwhile for us. So with that, until next time, stay nerdy.